You trusted someone, they smiled at you, said all the right things, made you feel safe, and then one day, without any warning, they showed you who they really were. By then, it was too late. Maybe it was a friend who talked behind your back, a partner who lied to your face, a colleague who took credit for your work. You didn't see it coming because they were good at hiding. And now you wonder, how do I stop this from happening again? Here's the truth most people miss. You don't need years to know someone. You don't need to wait until they hurt you. People will tell you exactly who they are if you know how to ask. Epictetus said, "It is impossible for a man to learn what he thinks he already knows." The same is true for people. They hide behind masks until the right question forces them into the light. Today, I'm going to show you 6 questions that make people expose themselves without even realizing it. Not manipulation, not tricks, just honest questions that cut through the performance. Question number 4 is the one people almost never answer honestly, because it reveals what they're most ashamed of. By the end of this video, you'll know how to see through anyone before they have a chance to deceive you. If you're tired of being fooled, subscribe and let's begin. Question number 1. What do you think of your ex? Let me tell you something that took me years to learn. If you want to know how someone will talk about you when you're gone, just listen to how they talk about the people who are already gone from their life. Their ex, their former boss, their old friends, the people they used to be close to but aren't anymore. That's where the truth hides. The first question is simple. What do you think of your ex, or their former boss, or friends they've lost touch with? Anyone who used to matter but doesn't anymore. Here's why this question is so powerful. It reveals 2 things at once. First, how someone processes relationships that didn't work out. Do they take any responsibility? Do they see their own part in what went wrong? Or is it always someone else's fault? Second, and this is the one that matters most, it shows you exactly how they'll talk about you someday. If every ex is crazy, if every boss was toxic, if every friend stabbed them in the back, pay attention, because one day you might become the next chapter in that same story. I learned this the hard way. Years ago, I dated someone named Claire. She was smart, charming, fun to be around. Everything felt right. Early on, I asked about her past relationships, just casual conversation. She laughed and went through the list. One ex was controlling, another was emotionally unavailable, a third one lied about everything. I remember thinking, wow, she really had bad luck. I felt sorry for her. I told myself I'd be different. I'd be the one who finally treated her right. 6 months later, we broke up. It wasn't dramatic. We just weren't compatible. I thought we'd part ways like adults. Then I heard what she was telling people about me. Word for word, the same script. He was emotionally unavailable. He didn't really care. He was just like all the others. It hit me. She wasn't describing her exes. She was describing the story she tells herself to avoid ever looking in the mirror. And now I was part of that story. The pattern was never about them. It was about her. And I missed it because I wanted to believe I was special. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Everything we hear is an opinion, not a fact. Everything we see is a perspective, not the truth." When someone talks about their past, they're not giving you an objective report. They're giving you their lens, their version, their narrative. And here's the thing about lenses. They don't change. The same lens they use to see their ex will be the lens they use to see you. The same story they tell about their former boss will be the story they tell about you when you're no longer useful. People don't change their patterns, they repeat them. And if you listen carefully, they'll tell you exactly what those patterns are before you become the next victim. So here's what I want you to do. Next time you're getting to know someone, a potential partner, a new friend, a business connection, ask casually about their past. What happened with your last relationship? How did things end with your old job? Why did you and your friend stop talking? Then listen, not just to the story itself, but to who carries the blame. If they take some responsibility, that's a good sign. It means they can reflect, they can grow, they can see themselves honestly. But if it's always someone else's fault, if they're always the victim and never the contributor, that's not bad luck, that's a pattern. And patterns don't stop just because you showed up. The story they tell about others is a preview of the story they'll tell about you. Listen carefully, they're showing you the future. But how someone talks about the past is only one piece. The next question reveals something even more telling. What happens when their ego gets challenged? Question number 2. How do you react when someone proves you wrong? There's one moment that reveals more about a person than almost anything else. It's not when they succeed. It's not when they're praised. It's not when everything is going their way. It's when they're proven wrong and everyone is watching. That moment, that split second between realizing they made a mistake and choosing how to respond, tells you everything you need to know about who they really are. The second question: how do you react when someone proves you wrong? Here's why this matters so much. This question exposes the ego, and ego is the silent killer of almost every relationship, friendships, partnerships, marriages, business deals. It all comes down to one thing. Can this person admit when they're wrong? Some people can. They hear a correction and say, "You're right, I didn't think of that." No drama. No defensiveness, no need to win, just honesty. Others can't. They argue, they deflect, they twist the conversation until somehow they're still right. Or they go quiet and punish you later for daring to challenge them. The first type builds trust, the second type builds resentment, and here's what most people don't realize. You won't see this on a first date. You won't see it in a job interview. You won't see it when someone is trying to impress you. Because when people want something from you, they're on their best behavior. You only see it when their ego is on the line. When being wrong feels like losing. When the mask is too heavy to hold. I saw this play out with 2 people I worked with years ago. The first was a guy named Thomas. Smart, experienced, ran a small team. One day in a meeting, someone pointed out an error in his report. Nothing major, just a miscalculation. Thomas paused, looked at the number, then nodded and said, "You're right, I missed that. Thanks for catching it." That was it. No excuses, no explanation, no attempt to save face, just acknowledgement, and we moved on. The second person was a manager named Stephen. Similar situation. Someone pointed out a mistake in his presentation, but Stephen's reaction was completely different. His face tightened. He started explaining why the number was technically correct from a certain angle. Then he changed the subject. Then, after the meeting, he pulled the person aside and made them feel small for speaking up. Guess which one people trusted? Guess which one had a team that actually wanted to work with him? Thomas wasn't weaker for admitting his mistake. He was stronger because he didn't need to be right to feel secure. He didn't need to win every moment to respect himself. Stephen needed to win, and that need made everyone around him lose. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "If anyone can show me that what I think or do is not right, I will gladly change. For I seek the truth, by which no one was ever truly harmed." The Stoics didn't see correction as an attack. They saw it as a gift. Someone showing you where you're wrong is someone helping you grow. Only the ego sees it as a threat. So here's how you use this. You don't always need to ask directly. Sometimes you just test gently, offer a different opinion, challenge something small, disagree politely and see what happens. Do they engage with curiosity or defend with aggression? Do they consider your point or fight to protect their position? Do they stay calm or do you feel the temperature rise? That reaction tells you everything. Because someone who can't handle being wrong in a small moment will definitely not handle it in a big one. And when the stakes are high, when it really matters, that's when the damage happens. A person who can admit "I was wrong" is a person you can build with. A person who can't is a person who will eventually make you pay for ever challenging them. Watch for this. It's one of the clearest signals you'll ever get. If you've ever trusted someone who later showed you their true face, drop "Now I see" in the comments. Your story might be the warning someone else needs today. How someone handles being wrong reveals their ego. But the next question reveals something even deeper: who they become when they have power over someone else. Question number 3. How do you treat people who can do nothing for you? You can learn a lot about someone by watching how they treat the powerful. But you can learn everything about someone by watching how they treat the powerless. The third question: how do you treat people who can do nothing for you? This is one of the most revealing questions you'll ever ask. Not because the answer is complicated, but because most people don't even realize they're being tested. Here's why this matters. Most people are nice when there's something to gain. They're polite to the boss, charming to the client, friendly to anyone who might be useful someday. That's not kindness, that's strategy. But the waiter who messes up their order, the cashier who's too slow, the old person walking in front of them, the customer service rep on the phone, that's where the mask slips. Because when there's no benefit, no reward, no one important watching, what's left is the real person. And that real person is who you'll eventually meet. Maybe not today, maybe not next month, but someday, when you're no longer useful to them, you'll see the same face they showed the waiter. I learned this from a dinner I'll never forget. Years ago, I was meeting a potential business partner named Richard. Impressive guy, great reputation. Everyone said he was brilliant, well-connected, someone I should work with. We met at a nice restaurant. He was charming from the moment he sat down, confident, engaging, said all the right things about partnership and mutual respect. But throughout the meal, I noticed something. He barely looked at the waiter. When the food came out slightly late, he made a comment under his breath. When the waiter asked if everything was okay, Richard didn't even answer, just waved his hand like he was shooing away a fly. No please, no thank you, not once. And the moment the waiter walked away, Richard was back to being warm and engaging with me, like nothing happened. But I saw it. I saw who he was when the mask slipped. We didn't do the deal. I made an excuse and walked away. A year later, I heard he'd been sued by former employees, multiple lawsuits, all about how he treated people once they were no longer useful to him. I wasn't surprised. The waiter had already told me everything I needed to know. Seneca wrote, "Associate with people who are likely to improve you." But there's a flip side the Stoics understood just as well. Avoid people who see others as beneath them, because if they treat strangers as worthless, they'll treat you the same way the moment you stop serving their needs. Character isn't how someone acts when they want something from you. Character is how they act when they want nothing, when there's no transaction, no audience, no benefit. That's where the truth lives. So here's what I want you to do. You don't need to ask this question directly. Just watch. Pay attention to the small moments. How do they speak to service workers? How do they react when someone makes a small mistake? Do they say thank you to the delivery driver? Do they acknowledge the person cleaning the office? These aren't small things. They're everything. Because the way someone treats people who can do nothing for them is exactly how they'll treat you when you can no longer do anything for them. And that day always comes. In every relationship, in every partnership, in every friendship. There will be a moment when you're not useful anymore, when you need something instead of offering something. In that moment, you'll meet the real person, the one the waiter already met. So watch carefully. The signs are always there. if you're willing to see them. How someone treats the powerless reveals their true character. But the next question goes even deeper. It reveals the part of themselves they're most ashamed of. Question number 4. What's something you've done that you're not proud of? This is the question I mentioned at the beginning. The one people almost never answer honestly. The one that makes even the most confident person pause. Because this question doesn't ask about their achievements. It doesn't ask about their dreams. It asks about the part of themselves they've been hiding, sometimes even from their own reflection. The 4th question. What's something you've done that you're not proud of? Here's why this question cuts so deep. Everyone has done something they regret. Everyone hurt someone they loved, made a choice they wish they could take back, acted in a way that didn't match who they want to be. That's not the question. The question is, can they admit it? Because how someone answers reveals everything about their self-awareness, their honesty, their capacity for growth. Some people can sit with the discomfort. They'll pause, think, and then share something real, not to impress you, but because they've actually looked in the mirror and faced what they saw. Others can't. They deflect. They laugh it off. They say things like, "I don't really have regrets," or "everything happens for a reason." It sounds healthy. It sounds evolved. But often it's just avoidance wearing a mask. Because people who can't acknowledge their own mistakes are people who will never take responsibility for hurting you. They'll always have an excuse, always have a reason, always find a way to make it someone else's fault. I learned this by asking this question to 2 very different people. The first was an old friend named Daniel. We were having a deep conversation one night, and I asked him what he'd done that he wasn't proud of. He went quiet. Then he said, "Years ago, I wasn't there for my father when he was sick. I was too focused on work, too busy chasing success. I told myself I'd make time later, and then later never came." His voice cracked when he said it. Not for sympathy, just truth. Raw and unfiltered. That honesty made me trust him more than 100 perfect conversations ever could. The second was someone I'd just started dating named Laura. Same question, but a completely different response. She laughed and said, "Honestly, I don't think I have any. I try to live without regrets." At first, it sounded confident, self-assured, but over the next few months, I saw the pattern. Every conflict was someone else's fault. Every mistake had a justification. She could never, not once, say, "I was wrong." Her no regrets wasn't wisdom. It was armor, and that armor made it impossible to ever get close to her. Epictetus taught, "No man is free who is not master of himself." Mastery requires honesty. If someone can't face what they've done wrong, they're still a prisoner of their own ego. And prisoners don't change. They just keep repeating the same patterns, often at your expense. So here's how you use this. Don't ask this casually. Wait for a moment of real connection and be willing to go first. Share something you're not proud of. Create safety. Then ask. Watch how they respond. Do they pause and reflect or rush to deflect? Do they share something real or give you a polished non-answer? Do they show vulnerability or hide behind excuses? The answer tells you whether this person is capable of real honesty with themselves and with you. Because someone who can say, "I'm not proud of that," is someone who can grow, someone who can take responsibility, someone who won't make you pay for their mistakes, and someone who can't. That's someone who will eventually hurt you and never understand why. If these questions are opening your eyes, hit like and subscribe. We're just getting started. This question reveals self-awareness, but the next question reveals something just as important, what someone becomes when life doesn't go their way. Question number 5. What do you do when things don't go your way? Life will test everyone. That's not a maybe, that's a guarantee. Plans will fall apart, people will disappoint, Things you counted on will vanish without warning. And in that moment, when everything goes wrong, you find out who someone really is. The fifth question: what do you do when things don't go your way? Here's what makes this question so revealing. Anyone can be pleasant when life is easy. Anyone can be kind when they're winning. Anyone can smile when everything is going according to plan. The real test is what happens when it's not. Some people respond with acceptance. They take a breath, they adjust. They look for solutions instead of someone to blame. Even when everything is falling apart, they stay steady. Others respond with chaos. They explode. They point fingers. They become victims of a world that's unfair and people who don't understand. They make everyone around them pay for their disappointment. The first type is safe to build with. The second type will eventually turn you into their target. Because here's what most people miss. How someone handles a small setback is exactly how they'll handle a big one, and how they treat the world when they're frustrated is eventually how they'll treat you. I watched this unfold with two friends who both lost their jobs in the same month, same company, same layoffs, same situation. The first was a guy named Marcus. When it happened, he was disappointed, of course, but he stayed calm. He said, "It's not what I wanted, but I'll figure it out." He didn't complain endlessly, didn't blame his boss, didn't spiral into self-pity. He updated his resume, reached out to contacts, kept his energy clean. When we hung out, he was still himself, steady, present, focused on what he could control. The second friend, let's call him Jason, had a completely different response. The moment he got the news, he started pointing fingers. His boss was an idiot. The company was corrupt. The economy was rigged against him. Everyone else had connections. He was the only one who got screwed. Weeks passed, then months, and the story never changed. Every conversation was the same: bitterness, blame, anger. He became exhausting to be around, not because of the job loss, but because of how he carried it. 6 months later, Marcus had a new job. A better one, actually. He said getting laid off was the push he needed. Jason was still unemployed, still bitter, still telling the same story about how the world was against him. Same setback, two completely different responses, two completely different outcomes. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." The Stoics understood that adversity doesn't create character, it reveals it. The obstacle isn't the enemy, your reaction to it is. So here's how you use this. Ask someone about a time things didn't go their way. A project that failed, a relationship that ended, a plan that fell apart, something they lost that mattered. Then listen carefully. Do they take ownership or find someone to blame? Do they talk about what they learned or just how unfair it was? Do they focus on what they did next or stay stuck in resentment? The answer tells you exactly what they'll be like in a crisis. And life is full of crises. If they can stay steady when things fall apart, they're someone you can trust when it matters. If they fall apart and blame everyone else, they're someone who will eventually blame you too. Because when life hits hard, and it always does, you want to be standing next to someone who responds with strength. Not someone who turns their pain into your problem. How someone handles setbacks reveals their resilience. But the final question reveals something even more fundamental: who they'd become if no one was watching. Question number 6. What would you do if you knew you'd never get caught? Here's the question that cuts through everything. Every mask, every performance, every carefully crafted image. One question that reveals what someone really values when there's no consequence, no reputation to protect, no one watching. The final question: what would you do if you knew you'd never get caught? This question is different from all the others because it removes every external constraint. No judgment, no punishment, no accountability, no social pressure. What's left is pure intention, the raw truth of who someone is when nothing is stopping them. And that truth tells you everything. Here's how people typically respond. Some give harmless answers. They'd skip work for a month, travel without paying, eat dessert for every meal. These are innocent fantasies, human, relatable, nothing to worry about. But others reveal something darker. Revenge they've been fantasizing about. People they'd hurt if they could. Things they've clearly thought about but only avoided because of consequences. That's the distinction that matters. The first group is guided by internal values. They don't steal, not because they'd get caught, but because stealing isn't who they are. They don't lie, not because they'd be exposed, but because honesty matters to them. The second group is only restrained by external rules. The only thing standing between them and harmful behavior is the fear of getting caught. Remove that fear, and you see who they really are. And people who are only restrained by rules will break them the moment they think they can get away with it. I learned this at a dinner party years ago. Someone asked this question to the group. Most answers were playful. One person said they'd rob a bank. Everyone laughed. It was clearly a joke. But then a man named Victor answered. Successful businessman, respected in the community, always polished, always professional. He smiled and said, "I'd destroy the people who wronged me, systematically, without mercy. I'd make sure they lost everything." The table went quiet. He laughed like it was a joke, but his eyes didn't laugh. There was something underneath, something real. I never forgot that moment, and I made sure to keep my distance from him. A few years later, I heard what happened. He'd been caught using his position to ruin competitors, destroying reputations, leaking false information, doing exactly what he said he'd do, except he thought he wouldn't get caught. He told me who he was that night. I just listened. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Waste no more time arguing about what a good man should be one." The Stoics believed that virtue is its own reward. A truly good person doesn't need rules to do the right thing. They do it because of who they are, not because someone is watching. This question separates those two types of people, those who are genuinely good and those who are just avoiding punishment. So here's how you use this. Ask it playfully. Keep it light. If you could do anything with zero consequences, what would you do? Most answers will be harmless. Laugh along, enjoy the fantasy. But pay attention to the ones that aren't. The ones that feel a little too specific, a little too thought out, a little too dark to be just a joke. Because sometimes people tell you exactly who they are and call it humor. The truth is, character isn't built in the big moments. It's built in the invisible ones, the choices no one sees, the actions no one knows about, the person you are when the lights are off and no one will ever find out. That's who someone really is. And this question, if you listen carefully, will show you. 6 questions. That's all it takes to see through the mask. Not years, not heartbreak, not painful lessons learned too late. Just the right questions and the courage to actually listen to the answers. You don't need years to know someone. You don't need to wait until they hurt you. You just need the right questions and the courage to listen to the answers. The Stoics didn't teach us to judge people. They taught us to see clearly, to protect our peace, to choose wisely who deserves a place in our life. If this video opened your eyes, subscribe and share it with someone who needs it. The mask always slips. Now you know where to look. I'll see you in the next video.